Welcome to LearnSphere AI's deep dive into mergers and acquisitions law in India, focusing on tax structuring. In this video, we'll explore the critical tax considerations that shape M&A transactions, especially in light of the recent legislative overhaul. Whether you're a student, professional, or enthusiast, this masterclass will help you understand the evolving landscape of Indian M&A tax law, including the transition from the Income Tax Act, 1961 to the new 2025 Act. Let's begin our journey through the essential chapters, practical examples, and strategic insights that define tax structuring in Indian M&A. This video is based on Part VII of the Master Subject Treatise, which consolidates all major tax threads discussed in earlier parts. We'll cover four main chapters: the Income Tax Act, 2025 Transition, Tax-Neutral Restructuring, Loss Carry-Forward, and the Taxation of Slump Sales and Indirect Transfers. Each chapter builds on the previous, ensuring you have a comprehensive understanding of both the legal framework and its practical implications for M&A deals in India. Key development impacting all M&A tax structuring is the replacement of the Income Tax Act, 1961 by the Income Tax Act, 2025, effective April 1, 2026. This change affects every section number and citation in the treatise. Understanding this transition is crucial, as it impacts how you interpret and apply the law to transactions occurring before and after this date. The new act reorganizes and simplifies the statute, but the core concepts remain largely intact. Anyone working with M&A tax law, it's essential to verify section numbers under the new 2025 Act before citing them in documents or filings. The treatise continues to use the 1961 Act section numbers for clarity, but always flags the need for renumbering verification. This discipline prevents citation errors and ensures accuracy, especially as the underlying substantive law is often carried forward, but the section references change. Treatise emphasizes that durable knowledge lies in understanding the conceptual structure of the law, what conditions must be met, and why not just memorizing section numbers. With frequent amendments, only a solid grasp of the underlying principles ensures you stay accurate and relevant, whether for exams, practice, or real-world application. Tax-neutral restructuring is a cornerstone of M&A tax planning. In India, mergers and demergers are not automatically tax-neutral. Even if a scheme is sanctioned by the NCLT under the Companies Act, it must independently satisfy specific conditions under the Income Tax Act to qualify for tax neutrality. Failing to meet these conditions can result in significant tax liabilities for the parties involved. For a merger to be tax neutral, it must meet the statutory conditions under Section 2, 1B of the Income Tax Act, 1961. These include the transfer of all property and liabilities to the amalgamated company, and at least 75% of shareholders, by value of the amalgamating company, must become shareholders of the amalgamated company. These conditions ensure continuity and prevent partial or disguised transfers. When the statutory conditions are met, the amalgamating company is not subject to capital gains tax on asset transfers, and shareholders are not taxed on the exchange of shares. The amalgamated company inherits the tax basis of assets, and shareholders retain their original cost basis for new shares. This preserves tax neutrality and avoids immediate tax costs. If the amalgamation does not meet the statutory conditions, it is taxed as an ordinary transfer. The amalgamating company and its shareholders may face capital gains tax based on the fair market value of assets and shares. This can significantly increase the transaction's tax cost, making pre-transaction due diligence critical for all parties. Demerger is tax neutral only if it meets the conditions under Section 2, 19A of the Income Tax Act, 1961. All property and liabilities of the undertaking must transfer to the resulting company, shares must be issued proportionally to shareholders, and at least 75% of shareholders must continue in the resulting company. The transfer must be at book value, and the demerger must be on a going concern basis. When a demerger qualifies, the transfer is not regarded as a taxable event for capital gains purposes. Shareholders are not taxed on the receipt of new shares, and the cost basis is split between old and new shares according to asset values. Losses and unabsorbed depreciation related to the transferred undertaking can be carried forward to the resulting company, subject to specific conditions. Indian tax law includes anti-avoidance provisions to prevent demergers structured solely for tax benefits. The General Anti-Avoidance Rule, GAAR, and specific conditions under Section 219A scrutinize transactions where the resulting company's shares are quickly sold after demerger. Such structures may be recharacterized and taxed as ordinary sales, removing the benefit of tax neutrality. One of the most attractive features of qualifying amalgamations and demergers is the ability to carry forward accumulated losses and unabsorbed depreciation. This allows the acquiring or resulting company to offset future profits with past losses, making the acquisition of loss-making companies more appealing from a tax perspective. Benefit from loss carry-forward under Section 72A, the amalgamation must be tax neutral, and the amalgamated company must retain at least 75% of the acquired assets and continue the business for 5 years. Additional conditions may be prescribed by the government, such as maintaining employment levels. Failure to meet these conditions can trigger a clawback of the tax benefit. If the amalgamated company fails to meet the 5-year asset retention or business continuity conditions, any previously set-off losses are added back as income in the year of default. This retroactive clawback can have significant financial implications, so careful planning and compliance are essential throughout the post-merger period. Demergers, only losses and unabsorbed depreciation directly related to the transferred undertaking can be carried forward to the resulting company. If losses can't be directly attributed, they are apportioned based on the proportion of assets transferred. This structure can make demerger then sale strategies more tax efficient than direct slump sales, but anti-avoidance rules must be considered. Slump sale involves transferring an entire business undertaking for a lump sum consideration, without assigning individual values to assets and liabilities. Taxation of slump sales is governed by Section 50B of the Income Tax Act, 1961. The capital gain is calculated as the difference between the sale consideration and the net worth of the undertaking, with specific rules for computing asset values. Net worth for slump sale purposes is the aggregate of the written down value of depreciable assets and the book value of other assets minus liabilities. The 2021 Finance Act clarified that the cost of depreciable assets should be reduced from the block of assets, resolving earlier ambiguities. Always check the latest provisions for accurate computation. Holding period for slump sales is determined by how long the undertaking as a whole was held, not the individual assets. If held for more than 36 months, gains are long-term, otherwise they are short-term. This is distinct from the holding period rules for shares and other assets, which were updated by the Finance No. 2 Act, 2024. Finance No. 2 Act, 2024 introduced significant changes to capital gains taxation. For listed equity, long-term gains above Rupee 1.25 lakh are taxed at 12.5%, while short-term gains are taxed at 20%. Unlisted shares and immovable property have a 24-month holding period and are taxed at 12.5% without indexation. These changes impact how M&A deals are structured and priced. Shift from 10% to 12.5% for long-term capital gains on listed equity, and from 15% to 20% for short-term gains is a major change. However, the grandfathering rules for acquisitions before July 2024 still apply, preserving the cost basis as of January 31, 2018. Always check which rate and cost basis apply to your transaction. Direct transfer rules tax the sale of shares in a foreign entity if that entity derives substantial value from Indian assets. If Indian assets make up more than 50% of the foreign entity's value, and the seller holds more than 5% of the foreign entity, the transfer is taxable in India. These rules were introduced after the Vodafone case and have since been refined to avoid retrospective taxation. Vodafone International Holdings case is a landmark in Indian tax law. Vodafone acquired a foreign company holding Indian assets, and the Indian tax authorities sought to tax the transaction. The Supreme Court ruled in Vodafone's favor, but Parliament responded with a retrospective amendment. This was later reversed for pre-2012 transactions, shaping today's indirect transfer framework. Today, indirect transfer provisions apply prospectively, with clear thresholds for substantial value and minimum holding. The rules provide certainty for cross-border M&A, ensuring that only transactions with significant Indian asset exposure are taxed. This clarity supports foreign investment while protecting the tax base. Stamp duty is a separate transaction cost, not governed by the Income Tax Act but by the Indian Stamp Act and state laws. Share transfers typically attract low stamp duty, while asset transfers and NCLT-sanctioned schemes can attract higher ad valorem rates. The structure of the deal can significantly affect the overall transaction cost, making stamp duty analysis essential. For share transfers, stamp duty is generally low, often just 0.015% for electronic transfers. This makes share acquisitions structurally favored from a stamp duty perspective, especially compared to asset acquisitions, which can attract much higher rates. Always check the specific rules for your state and transaction type. Asset acquisitions, including slump sales, often attract higher stamp duty, calculated on the higher of the consideration or market value. This can be a significant cost, especially for deals involving immovable property or business transfer agreements. Proper diligence and planning are needed to avoid surprises. NCLT-sanctioned schemes are treated as conveyances in most states, attracting stamp duty on the NCLT order itself. The rates and exemptions vary widely by state, and some states offer concessions for intragroup schemes. A state-by-state analysis is essential for multi-state transactions to optimize costs. Summarize: effective tax structuring in Indian M&A requires understanding the interplay between the Companies Act, the Income Tax Act, and state stamp duty laws. Each transaction type, amalgamation, demerger, slump sale, or share transfer, has its own set of conditions, benefits, and risks. Careful planning, due diligence, and verification of current law are essential for successful outcomes. From April 2026, always use the CBDT's official section mapping tool or a verified professional resource to confirm the correct section numbers under the Income Tax Act, 2025. Never assume that old section numbers apply, and always check for substantive changes in the law. This practice ensures accuracy in filings, advice, and compliance. For students and professionals, remember that examiners and clients value accurate, up-to-date knowledge. Focus on the conceptual structure of the law and always flag when a provision number may have changed. This approach demonstrates both technical competence and practical awareness. Frequent pitfall is confusing similar-sounding thresholds in company law and tax law, such as the 75% shareholder continuity test in tax law versus the approval threshold in the Companies Act. Always distinguish between these tests, as satisfying one does not guarantee compliance with the other. Thorough due diligence is essential in M&A, especially for tax structuring. Verify all statutory conditions, check for potential anti-avoidance risks, and ensure compliance with both central and state laws. This reduces the risk of unexpected tax liabilities and transaction costs. Given the complexity and frequent changes in M&A tax law, professional advice is invaluable. Tax advisors, legal counsel, and financial experts can help structure deals efficiently, navigate compliance, and optimize outcomes. Always consult updated resources and experienced professionals. As India's tax laws continue to evolve, staying informed about legislative changes and policy trends is crucial. The shift to the Income Tax Act, 2025 is just one example of ongoing reform. Future trends may include further simplification, digitalization, and increased scrutiny of cross-border transactions. Choosing the right structure, amalgamation, demerger, slump sale, or share transfer depends on the specific goals, assets, and parties involved. Each structure offers different tax and stamp duty outcomes. Strategic planning with a clear understanding of the law maximizes benefits and minimizes risks. Accurate and thorough documentation is vital in M&A tax structuring. Ensure all agreements, filings, and supporting documents clearly reflect the transaction structure and compliance with statutory conditions. Proper documentation supports your position in audits, disputes, and regulatory reviews. Post-merger integration is as important as the transaction itself. Ensure that the amalgamated or resulting company continues to meet all statutory conditions for the required period, especially for loss carry-forward and asset retention. Ongoing compliance protects the tax benefits achieved in the deal. Cross-border M&A introduces additional complexity, especially with indirect transfer provisions and international tax treaties. Always analyze the impact of Indian and foreign tax laws and structure transactions to avoid double taxation and ensure compliance with all relevant jurisdictions. Technology is playing an increasing role in tax compliance and structuring. Use official online tools such as the CBDT's section mapping utility and stay updated with digital resources for the latest legal developments. Digital diligence enhances accuracy and efficiency in M&A tax planning. Understanding the policy rationale behind tax provisions helps in structuring deals and anticipating regulatory changes. Tax neutrality, anti-avoidance, and the encouragement of genuine business reorganizations are key policy goals reflected in the law. Aligning transactions with these objectives reduces risk and supports compliance. Landmark cases like Vodafone International Holdings provide valuable lessons for structuring M&A deals. Study these cases to understand how courts interpret tax provisions and how legislative responses shape the current framework. Case law analysis is essential for both students and practitioners. M&A tax law is dynamic with frequent amendments and evolving interpretations. Commit to continuous learning by following official updates, attending professional seminars, and engaging with expert commentary. Staying current ensures your advice and decisions remain effective and compliant. With Part VII's comprehensive coverage of tax structuring, the treatise will next address insolvency-driven acquisitions under the IBC in Part IX. This will complete the spectrum from negotiated M&A to distressed asset purchases, providing a full picture of acquisition strategies in India. In conclusion, mastering tax structuring in Indian M&A requires a blend of legal knowledge, practical skills, and strategic foresight. Focus on the substance of the law, verify all details, and plan for both immediate and long-term compliance. With these tools, you'll be well equipped to navigate the evolving world of M&A tax in India.